Good morning. Wake up, New Orleans. Good morning. Listen, it's always a good time to be in studio with y'all. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. In studio co-hosted with me is none other than the Will Sutton. And behind the glass, my super producer, Naira Santos, is always holding us down. And good morning, OT, wherever you are. We miss you over here. But there's a lot to talk about. And anytime Will is in the building, you know what we going to do, Will? We're going to talk about it, right? So, first things first, I want to give a huge shout out to the New Orleans United Front. Their monthly meeting took place last night, and it was a packed house. I was so excited because the day before, I believe I said I was hoping, maybe the day of, I was hoping that more folk would come out, show up, and I don't know, somebody sprinkled some little fairy dust in the air, and the people showed up. So yesterday we were talking to the fire chief, Roman Nelson, FBI agent in charge of the New Orleans office, Agent Myrtle, and we were talking to the NOPD police chief as well. So I think a deputy chief superintendent. I can't remember what his actual title is, but Nicholas Gernon is his name. I know he has a big title, and he wears a nice crispy white shirt.
Yeah.
So it was a nice panel. The independent police monitor, Stella Cement, showed up. There was the FBI outreach person, Miss Wendy Keller. She was there. Representative Alonzo Knox was in the building from District 93. I don't know, the people was out. Listen, New Orleans United Front has a way of bringing the people out. So shout out to all of the people involved with the New Orleans United Front. And as always, I moderate the conversations. So it was a good time. The food was good, sponsored by Attorney Robbins Graham. It was a good day.
Well,
good topics.
Sounds like people wanted to get beyond that snow
and
ice.
Yes.
And you had a good group of people to gather to
So the
to
topic
talk.
was public safety. So it was just a kind of a broad thing, but you know how my mind goes. I just think of questions on the spot. The fire chief walked up to me after. He said, "Dr. Why, you know you asked some hard questions." I said, "I'm sorry." I just asked what I think the folk want to know. But he was kind of joking. It was my first time seeing him. I talked to him often on the show.
Right.
I just saw this man. I felt, he looked like he was 7 feet. He's huge.
Yeah.
So it was my first time seeing him. So it was a good time. We had a really, really good time. It was the meeting. It's always like 2 hours, 5 to 7, but it was so much happening, so many questions, so many comments. We went a little bit over time, and our panel was very gracious, and they answered every question to the best of their ability. Some questions, the independent police monitor was able to answer. Some questions, the outreach specialist for the FBI was able to answer. But I think one of the takeaways, and I guess the frustrations of some people showed up in their commentary because they are not aware that by statute, a lot of the questions they were asking directed towards the FBI agent in charge, he could not respond if they were politically, energized questions.
Right.
And he tried to say that, but it just sounded to people like, yeah, you just don't want to answer the question. But if you heard what he said, then you will be able to respect the way he tried to express the answer in a way that didn't violate whatever the
step
parameters
up to the line,
are.
Step up to the line, but not step over. Yeah.
So he tried his best, but he did give out a lot of valuable information. But there were some questions that had some political energy. I know I did. I asked a politically energized question, but I didn't know, until he said that, and I respected his response. So I think we grow in moments where we can we don't necessarily have to agree. But if my perspective is respected and valued and your perspective is respected and valued, then we could have a conversation and some discourse. So it was a good meeting. So shout out to the New Orleans United Front.
Well, it sounds like it was a wonderful meeting. It's important to have those conversations in moments when there's not crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, we seem to elevate conversations when there's crisis.
Up here, it's height. Yeah.
Right. But for individuals to grow and communities to grow, it's important to have those conversations when you're not like facing a deadline, or the cameras are in your face, or there's somebody's political candidacy at issue, because these are issues of importance to everybody in the community, and hearing those different voices is great. So I'm really glad y'all had a great turnout.
We did.
That's really good.
And what another part of it, I was trying to, I had some conversations with the community outreach specialist at the end, and I was trying to help her understand, because I believe she's also from New Orleans, but she is not a Black woman.
Right.
So I was trying to get her to understand a lot of the men that took the mic are elder men, right? So they've heard, seen, and it feels like the same song and dance. And it's just, you know, you feel like a pressure cooker. Like, at what
Right.
point am I going to get my questions answered? Because there's a real fear here for us. You may not be experiencing
Right,
this fear,
right,
but
right.
we are.
Right.
And I was trying to, you know, just kind of package that for her, because there is a reality that you don't necessarily have to face, that as a Black woman I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand that fear that he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the frustration of asking a question and you feel like you being, you know, run around in a circle. I get it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, sometimes we're not directing our questions at the right people.
Right.
And maybe he can't answer it, but there's somebody that can answer the question. And I applaud anyone that will go in a room and interface with community and sit, you know, in a hot seat and answer the tough questions. And I feel like all of our elected officials should be duty bound to do that. If you hold office, you should not have the right or the ability to duck community meetings or community conversations, as many of our elected officials do. And so when we do get the ones that want to talk to us, we have to treat them with a level of respect first and foremost, but we still can get the answers. We still can ask the questions, but we just have to be mindful that that might not be the quickest line to the answer we're looking for.
And you can ask them, well, who does know?
That's what I like to ask.
Who does know?
I'm like, if you can't answer it, point me in a direction of who can, right? So I that's what I like to know, Will. But I like I said, the audience, much like the WBOK listening audience, they don't pull any punches, and it's raw and it's unfiltered most of the time, and it has heat on it and passion next to it, and I don't think anything is wrong with that. But
Right.
if we get the people to come and they're doing the best that they can to give us the answers without stepping outside of the confines of what is acceptable for their role, then I can respect that.
Right.
But we all know when people are yanking our chain, right? And
Right.
and kind of like sending us around and around. But I don't believe that's what was happening with that panel. But when you've been done that so many times,
Right.
it's like you take your vitriol out on the closest person. And it
Right.
just happens to be you at the moment, but it's not for you.
Right.
So I get it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? I get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I've run schools before, and I've gotten heat for things my teachers have done, but it's my job to take it because
Right.
I'm the leader.
Right.
And so I get it. But I was excited because people actually showed up. They came ready to have conversations. Our panel came ready to answer them, and I was just excited that the room literally had folks standing up in it last night. So
That's wonderful.
that was a
Now,
good
was that
thing.
the
Cafe
first meeting
Istanbul.
of the? Oh, that's a great venue.
Yeah, Cafe
Was
Istanbul.
that the first meeting of January?
Yeah, I believe it's every fourth Monday, so it's only one meeting a month. And I do believe the next meeting date is already out, already posted for February. So I'm excited to see what we have coming up next. But I do know when I saw the flyer that I believe the conversations will center around education and our search for our next superintendent, which is
huge.
going to be fun. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
huge?
that's huge. That's huge. So, one of the things about a leadership position like that is there are a lot of stakeholders.
Yeah.
And in a best case scenario, the people who are in charge of the search, the people who will make the decision of who will be next, whether it's school superintendent or a university president or a CEO, it's really important that they seek and listen to stakeholders,
Right.
not just the people in the room who get a vote, get a say, but to hear what people want and what they think. And I think it's really important that they listen to stakeholders who've been there, not just the
You want me to
ones
ring a bell
who,
for you, huh, Will?
not just the ones who witnessed the last leader,
Yes.
who are part of the last search, but the people who have some history with the different leadership selections, the different leadership roles, because Lord knows we've had some different types of leadership roles here with these different districts and all of that. And so one of the things that I hope is that that it will be transparent and obvious that the school leadership, school board in particular, is listening to stakeholders of various kinds. So, if I'm a grandfather, and I am, my kids in San Diego, so they're not here. But if I have kids in school, then that's a different outlook than if my son has kids in school. You're closer to it. And if I went to the school system, so let's say I went to Sims in the Lower Ninth Ward, doesn't even exist anymore. It's unfair for me to hold what I experienced at Sims decades ago and say I want a school like that because things have totally changed. But it doesn't mean you don't listen to those folks. And then you absolutely have to take into consideration folks like you who have a strong education background, who know what they're talking about. I think I bring a little intelligence to a conversation like that.
Just a bit.
But I'm not in and
Right.
of the system.
Right.
And so I can't speak to some of the things that way that somebody else can. And I think it's really important. I really hope that that will be the case. And I don't know of many situations where we would want a caretaker leader. We would want a long-term leader.
Well, we're going to put a comma right there because we have to go to break and pay a couple bills. But when we come back, we're going to finish the sentence.
Yes.
And we're going to continue with this conversation right here. WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is always talking about.
Late nights are made for chillin', and you can do just that every Sunday night at 10 p.m. as DJ Wick brings you The Love Zone. It's the perfect way to top off your weekend with your favorite old and new school ballads. So sit back, relax, and let DJ Wick take you to the Love Zone on WBOK 1230 AM and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Flu cases are at critical levels. I'm Dr. Takesha Charles Davis, President and CEO of New Orleans East Hospital. It is so important that our community gets its flu vaccine. Millions of people are hospitalized every year with flu complications, and thousands of those cases result in death. Flu Ready NOLA urges you to protect yourself and your loved ones by getting your flu shot today. Visit a healthcare provider, pharmacy, or hospital to get your shot and be flu ready, NOLA.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana communities through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, please visit us at www.jazzandheritage.org.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Tuesday, y'all. If you are just joining us, We are in studio with the one and only Will Sutton, flying in the co-pilot seat this morning, and super producer Naira Sanders is holding us down behind the glass. And if you know this voice, it belongs to me, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Hey, OT, I'm sorry we missed you, but I guess we'll hold it together today for us. How was you think, Will? You got it?
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. And before we went to break, Will and I were talking about the importance of the superintendent search and what that means for our current school system and the way we move our school system forward. And I put a comma there because I absolutely wanted to chime in because I do agree with you in terms of the school system you experience, even the school system I experience, isn't necessarily the school system that our children are currently experiencing. And I think current knowledge of the system has to be a part of whoever takes that seat. You have to understand that we are unlike the other 63 parishes in the state of Louisiana and any other parish across this country. We are unique, one of a kind. We just recently were given access to one school to be directly run. So we're not 100% charter anymore, but we are predominantly almost exclusively charter, and that's a different ball game for anybody walking into that. And I also believe the historical knowledge of our school system is important. Understanding the culture of this community is important, and I do think we have to go further than just listening to our stakeholders because we've done that. We've put the surveys out. We've asked the folk, what is it that you want in your superintendent? We've done the listening sessions. We filled out the documents, and it still seems as though the people who were in charge of the decision-making portion of it still kind of went in the direction of what they wanted as opposed to what the community wanted. So now we're here again, and now the surveys are out again, and now they're asking us again for our feedback. So what happens when we tell you and you're supposed to be listening, but you didn't hear what we had to say?
So do you think they shouldn't do the surveys this time?
No, I think you should.
Okay.
But
Is there something that can be different?
That's what I'm asking, because we did the surveys.
Yeah.
Folk were able to put their input into the survey. Folks were able to say, some folk even said, this is who I want.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I'm asking is, if you're actually hearing me, if you're hearing us, then how is it that our feedback, our input isn't being factored into the decision making for the seats? So what I'm hoping this time around, it's not just the technicalities or the checklist or just going through the motions of doing it because we did get community input. We talked to you. We heard you. But did you hear us? Because now I'm wondering, how are you going to move differently this time to ensure that our children have access to longevity in their school leader? That would be my question.
Yeah.
What are we going to do differently with the information that we're given?
Right. Well, is there a scenario where you could see a school superintendent candidate being more honest about what he or she sees in the system with, say, certain CMOs, and bringing that up as something that he or she would take on? Could they get the job if they did that?
That's that. See, your brain is, I think, get out my brain, Will Sutton, get out my brain. Because I think, too, we don't value authenticity in our leaders the way we should. We ostracize leaders who are honest about the current state of things. But I believe unless we're totally honest about the current state of things, then we can't get a real solution in terms of how do we go about correcting this, right, or righting the ship. We can't do that if we continue to pretend that we're in a better shape than we are. I think it's incumbent upon us to actually want that sort of authenticity and honesty in our next leader, because it goes a long way in terms of buy-in with the community. Because if I live here and I know it's not what you're saying, and I see you up there saying that this is what it is, then how could I then follow your lead when you're not even being honest about what is happening here? I also think whomever sits in that seat has to be a fierce protector of our schools and institutions who are vital to our school communities. We can't have a school desert in a community. We cannot have that. We can't have communities without a lifeline, which is a school. That's just unacceptable. So for me, I believe whoever sits in that seat has to ensure that neighborhoods whose very existence depends on the viability of its school has a school in the community to be viable. That's the bottom line to that. Whatever that looks like, that is what we need to do. There's no way in the equation where we can say that's not an option. That's what I believe. And so for me, I think when you have a leader that thinks like that, then your solutions are going to go in that direction. But if your mindset says, oh, we just have to close it, it's just not doing well, then you're not giving the community or the children real access. That's a key pillar of schools, access. And if you're denying me access by only looking to close my school, then I don't think that is the way to cultivate unifying the district. And that's what we have to have. We have to have some resemblance of unification in a sense that there is not a haves and a have-nots system of educating our children in this city. And if the leader doesn't understand that, then I don't think that this is the trajectory or the terrain that they should be leading in. You have to go find a different system, because here we have to have unification in a way that there's equity for all children, and not just the propaganda of equity, but the realization of equity. And I believe that every neighborhood deserves to have a schoolhouse in it. And anywhere I see a neighborhood that lacks a school, you're going to see a neighborhood that lacks all foundational resources, in my opinion. Just look around. Right?
I got you.
So for me, I don't think listening to surveys and having these listening sessions is the stopping point. I believe that's the starting point. And then when you compile this information, then you have to put that information in a room with think leaders, people who have thought for children, thought for access, thought for equity, and thought for making certain that we not only bandage our scars here in New Orleans in terms of our school system, but that we start to heal them, because that's the only way that this is going to work, in my humble opinion. Right?
Your well-educated opinion.
And for me, I stand on that. I want there to be schools where our children and our parents are comfortable walking into, and you have the sense of understanding that I left him in a good place, right? I don't have to worry where my child is, or worried about their safety, worried about if the grade he's bringing home is actually the grade that he's earning. And for me, I want there to be a real authentic partnership between parents and schools. There's no other way that a school will work if you ostracize or close the door or push out parental involvement. It will not work. All of the schools all across this country that do well, they do well because the stakeholders are actually a part of the school community. It's not just on paper. You can see it, right? A school feels like a school. The culture of the school feels like there's partnerships and education and liveliness going into it. But right now, I feel like we play school, like we're just checking boxes to say, okay, we've done this, we've done this. But there are schools right now in this city that don't allow parents to have a say in their child's education. And where is that best practices? Nowhere. Look at the best schools in the best neighborhoods in the best cities. There is a strong parental base. There's a strong buy-in from businesses and communities and community stakeholders and leadership, elected officials. That all of that stuff works in tandem with each other. And when you see any cog in that chain weak, then the school system is not doing its best to put out the best product, right? And outcomes is product. And so for me, I think that's the thinking we have to, the page we need to be on to ensure that we can start to resuscitate our school system.
So we're so different.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not inaccurate. So many times we'll say unique, we don't really mean unique.
Yes.
But this is truly a unique district, unique situation.
Yes.
I mean, it's nowhere else like this. So how reasonable? No, not how reasonable, because we need the best leader.
Yeah.
So how can we find the best leader for a system that is one of a kind? He or she's had all this experience. Let's say they've had an incredible track record, but not a track record that is reflective of what's going on here.
If we have a one-of-a-kind system, then we need a one-of-a-kind leader, right? And for me, I think it's important that people realize that you could be a dynamic leader in Idaho, but you might not fit as a dynamic leader in New Orleans, and vice versa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think understanding the landscape in which you're trying to serve is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think cultural relevance is important, right? Not just the textbook version of it, but the applicable part of understanding the culture of the place where you're trying to ingratiate yourself, right? I'm not going to go anywhere and assume I know best than the people who are there. The sign of a good leader is to say, I need to go here and soak up some understanding of what I'm getting ready to take on. If I were to entertain a job in any other state, I will go there long before it's time for me to start leading and to try to understand the people and the culture, right? And just the way the wind blows up there. Because there's no way that I can create the buy-in from the folk that I find there if I go there and just try to flip the table over and tell them what's best for them. And that's what's happened to us time and time again here. And folks soon realize this is unlike any other place I've ever worked. So you can have the expertise. We're not saying that you're not capable.
Right.
A lot of the times, the part where folks stumble is thinking that you could just come here and do business as usual in terms of how to educate kids, and you'll find that even the population of children is much different than the population of children that you're accustomed to. The parents are different than the parents that you're accustomed to. The community is different. Like, these folk have real say. Like, they have real things to say. That might be uncomfortable for some folk. Right? You have to understand that at any given moment, you're dealing with a very impassioned parent. That does not make them aggressive. That does not make them a threat. That they're communicating with you in the best way they know how. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to label it and push it away because it's foreign to you. I would much rather a parent that's communicating with me in a not so great way than a parent that's not communicating with me at all. Because then as we grow and learn each other, we're going to learn how to communicate with one another. But if you believe that your degree gives you the ability to judge or to say, I don't want to deal with that, then this isn't the place for you.
Right.
And I think all of those intangible things have to be considered when we're talking about who leads this unique district. That will be, if anybody asks me what I think, or
there are a lot of people who care what you think, So
if anybody asks me, that's what I would say to them, right? Because again, I don't proclaim to know it all. I stay in the lane that God carved out for me, but this lane right here, I'm going to stand firm in what I know, and how I've been grown. Because I don't really like the word train. You train animals, right? But in the training I've received from my universities, I understand that this job is more than what you learn in a textbook, right? Harry Wong can't tell you how to run a school in New Orleans. It will not. The first 100 days of school will not prepare you for what you're seeing here in New Orleans. And I think folk take offense to that when folk tell them this place is different. And then you're here for 30 days, 60 days, and you come back talk about, yeah, this place is different. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. Doesn't mean different bad. It's just different.
Right.
And folk here respect you more when you can respect our difference and honor it without trying to wipe it away to build up what you want it to look like. This is a beautiful city. Our children are brilliant. The sign of a good leader and the sign of a good teacher is to tap into their brilliance and then give them the curriculum in the way that their brilliance understands it. But if you're going to say, I'm going to teach it this way, and you're going to learn it this way, or you're going to fail, that's why our babies are disinterested in coming to your classroom, because you haven't tapped into the way that I understand it. And that's what I want for all of my babies here in this city.
Do you think we could have a successful superintendent in our district who hasn't been a superintendent?
I think that you don't get experience without getting the experience, right? I don't know what you can do until I give you an opportunity to do it. And I think most folk would understand that. Like you prior to Obama being president, he had never been president of anything before. Prior to our current president being president, he wasn't president before. So I think that we have to understand that experience is absolutely crucial to being successful in any field, right? But in order for you to go up a ladder, you got to take the step on the first rung. You can't just do, unless you're Superman or Wonder Woman or somebody, Black Panther maybe, but you got to step up the ladder. And I think that we've done it so many ways, and it hasn't panned out for us because we've had people who've been superintendents before.
Right.
We've had a person who's not been a superintendent before, right? So we've done it a variety of ways, but now it's time to look at for me, this is about the viability of public schools right now. This is about the survival of public schools. And I think in order for us to be viable and to survive, we have to go get us a real fighter for public education, a real fighter for children, and a real fighter for equity. And that is it. And then whatever that looks like on paper for us, then that's the checklist we're looking for. But we want somebody that's going to make certain that New Orleans has a viable school system so that when they come here for the culture, they can actually live here because there's a schoolhouse for their babies. And I believe education is the cornerstone for everything else. When folk look for houses, they want to know what's the school in the area.
Yeah, right.
That's your tax base too. So for me, you could come here for the food, you could come here for the music, but you want to stay here, we have to get our school system together. I think that's a key factor in why folks are leaving, and folks who come to visit don't necessarily want to put their stakes down here because our school system is not where we want it to be, but we'll get there. I believe we'll get there. We have to go to break again. You see how fast this is going? The conversation be so good, and then
just talking,
and then you gotta go to break because we talking like we at the kitchen table at home.
Right.
But if you want to join the conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. After the break, we'll have more conversation with the one and only Will Sutton right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
A few spots of patchy fog expected this morning, especially over water. Lakes could see visibility drop to less than a mile. Mostly cloudy after that, with near-seasonal highs in the low to mid-60s. Staying cloudy tonight, lows in the upper 40s to mid-50s, warming to the upper 60s Wednesday, 70s by Thursday, rain on Friday morning. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Eye Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or Avastin-Captid Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Hi, this is Cary Grant. Let's elevate every Tuesday through Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. as we discuss the community, the country, and the world, from politics to current events and sports. We look forward to your input and continuing the quality programming on your community station, WBOK. Join us every Tuesday through Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. on Elevated Conversations, the Arnie and Cary Show.
WBOK and LCMC Health are proud to present Keeping You Well Cafe, 60 Minutes with LCMC Health, where the doctors speak directly to the people of New Orleans. LCMC Health is committed to improving the quality of care here in New Orleans, the Gulf South, and beyond. The Keeping You Well Cafe is another way for LCMC Health to engage with the community. At the Keeping You Well Cafe, LCMC Health joins WBOK and local businesses to answer your questions about wellness and health.
Welcome to Liberty Bank and Trust, where your financial journey transforms communities. Since 1972, our customized banking solutions power your dreams and fuel your community growth. Every dollar you invest with us circles back to empower more people, ensuring opportunities for generations. Join us at Liberty Bank. Together, we empower possibility. Visit libertybank.net to start banking with purpose. Liberty Bank, there's freedom here.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
We are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Flying co-pilot today is none other than the Will Sutton. And super producer Nyra Sanders is also here. And before we went to break, we were talking about all things education and the importance of our next superintendent search. And we were really talking like you. It was like, what? My producer's back there like, break. I'm like, break? We just went to break. But it's time flies when you're having good conversation. If you want to join the conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. I expected some folk to call. One in particular to call about this, and I'm sure he would. He will when he gets up. But until then, I want to pivot because I want to talk about you and this article you wrote.
Oh,
okay. Because listen, I talked about this on WBOK, but I also talked a bit about this on my personal Facebook page. Mm-hmm. I did a live on my personal Facebook page, and before I could even get off the live, there were at least 1,000 people had chimed in on the conversation because I was talking about the audacity of people to fly flags on buildings where they don't pay a mortgage, right? And so that's basically what I was talking about. And but nobody can do it better than Will Sutton. So the article says governor had no right to put MAGA flag over People's Mansion. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, it's our house. I mean, we got visitors that we elect, and they and their families have the opportunity to use the mansion as a part of their jobs and to meet and greet people and entertain people, hold dinners, lunches, breakfast, sleep, get ready for work the next day, do work while you're there. But the idea of flying a flag that is so specific to you and your philosophy over a public building is just offensive
The
to me.
divisiveness, like it's
Just
this
offensive.
divisive.
It's so offensive. So even Jeff Landry, who went through the campaign he went through, won in the first round, said he wanted to unite the state. Well, that's not a uniting kind of move. You can have your philosophy after you're elected and say the people elected me to do this, but listen to people. But then don't do something that just is so blatant, so offensive. Throw it in people's face and put up a flag that's specific to MAGA on the state governor's mansion.
I'll tell you another point that I want you to chime in on that I talked about on my personal social media page. And I want folk to hear this because, sometimes they hear and pick what they thought they heard. But I can remember when this conversation was surrounding our mayor and the use of the Catawba, right? Folk were talking about, because it's our tax dollars. We care about where our tax dollars are going.
Sure.
Let's erase all of the other stuff. Let's just focus in on your tax dollars, and this is why you're concerned about her use of the Catawba, your mayor, right?
Yep.
I want to understand the difference between your tax dollars, your mayor, and her use of the Catawba, and your tax dollars, your governor, and his use of the governor's mansion.
All right.
So since we're talking about your tax dollars,
right.
So as a tax-paying citizen of the state of Louisiana, how do you then not have a problem with a mayor who represents all of the citizenry of the state flying a flag that only represents a portion of the belief system of the citizenry of the state? Then how is it not a conversation about your tax dollars?
Right. Well, it is our tax dollars. And it's not just the property. I mean, we have people who work there, and we're paying their salaries, whether you're in the house or not. I mean, people work at that house because it's a big place. So we're paying state taxes to keep that place going day after day after day. And I'm okay with another flag flying other than the American flag, which by, federal flag code should be the highest flag flown anywhere in the nation on a public building, and then your state flag, and you can fly another flag. But the third flag should be representative of all of us, or something that all of us feel.
So can we put a little pin there? Because I absolutely want to have this conversation with you, because we're going to talk about this article. I think your pen is so precise. So we're going to talk about this article, but we actually have a caller on line one.
All right.
Good morning, Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning, Dr. White and the incomparable Will Sutton.
Hey, how are you, Senator?
I'm fine. How are you both this morning?
Fabulous, fabulous.
Excellent. I was calling in this morning because your earlier topic, the school leader for New Orleans going forward.
Yes.
I just could not respond and just weigh in. Dr. White, who's identifying and describing characters of who would be the epitome of leadership for us going forward, given everything we know about the 20-year experiment of our children with the charter approach. In my professional opinion, as a New Orleanian, a lifelong public servant over 50 years, education in particular, Dr. White is the only prepared professional to address a situation that is like no other in the entire world. And now let me tell you why I say that. And this is a call to action for this entire city. We have had others to dictate, advocate, and create something that does not exist anywhere else, and it is adversely affecting our children and our community. We don't even need to argue about it. We know it. We see the conditions, both in terms of our children and our school system. This city, meaning every citizen in general, but African American citizens in particular, must not allow any other school leader to be identified to try and take us out of this mess. Now, I say that for the following reason in particular. Given the present national leader we now have, our state leader, Dr. Wyatt brings not only the knowledge, values, and skills of an experienced educator, but she also knows this community. She is this community. And that is what we need to ensure the accountability and the kind of vision that can create in no other system that exists in the world the best thing for our children and community. And I am going to take an active role in saying that until our school board does the right thing, or if they do the wrong thing, I will then join the community to do whatever we must do to stop what is happening to our children relative to public education. So I just wanted to weigh in on that to talk about the critical juncture we are to not allow another third party to decide the fate of our children in this community as it relates to public education.
Senator Bowie, yes, sir. That is a significant statement coming from you with a man of your experience and background, your educational expertise, your commitment to the community, your service to the community, the professional jobs that you have had, and to say that you know the one person who should lead this very unique school district, that's a heck of a statement you're making.
Well, it's a statement, but it is a very true statement. It is a statement that really addresses and defines the one personality who has, and listen to me well, the knowledge, the skills, and the values of this particular condition in education. And of course, I can peel the onion on all of those pieces, and I don't want to take up the show, but in truth, there is no one else who knows the history, but also has the vision, knowledge, and skills to take us out of where we are. And here's the other thing, Brother Sutton. If those who have been the drivers of the condition of this failed experiment, and it ended last year, and I'll be telling the public about that at some other point in time, if they were serious about quality education, they would admit where they have erred and come together and say, let's do the right thing for our children. But what they've done instead is to put a target on this community person's back who has been and is a serious educator, blackballed her, and have created an environment where our children in our community cannot benefit from what she can contribute to this mess. And so that, to me, is treasonous. And I say that word and I use that word because at this point in time in the life of this community, if we do not take a stand for public education, because now we have a leader who wants to get rid of public education. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have to have one who has the courage, the commitment, in addition to the knowledge and skills to make this thing happen. So the community must circle the wagons around Dr. Wyatt in the interest of our children and our community. For all of the reasons people know, and she articulates what her vision is all the time. So this is not a theory. This is a condition, and we have a solution right here at home. We don't need to go anywhere else in this world. We have the person with the skills, knowledge, and values we need for this condition that exists for our children in our community. This is a serious piece. If we don't do this, we will be through as a community regarding public education, given the direction the nation and the state is going around the issue of public education.
So
I just had to weigh in because that's how serious this particular piece is.
So the school system has set out a plan for the search, and so that part has started with a description, the role, the community involvement. What do you think needs to change immediately to move in the direction of the candidate that you would like to see become the superintendent?
Well, for me personally, I am going to call every school board member and make an appeal to them that if they are serious about moving forward to create an environment of equity and quality, they not only just must consider Dr. White, but give and create a level playing field, because I can tell you, I know what the charter people are doing. Just as they said for the last superintendent, we're not going to deal with anybody in-house, they dictated the outcome. And you see what that outcome was. That person is now gone. And then I'll tell you why that person is gone, straight up. Person is gone because they decided that, you know what, yes, we need to have another neighborhood school. We need to direct run a school because that person did something contrary to what this failed process is doing. So anybody who does not, quote, jump through the hoops of the charter advocates, they will be in opposition to. That's real. So we don't need to talk about it. We know about it. This is not about them, though. This is about our children and this community. So if we as a people care about our children, we must stand and demand that we have one of our own who is eminently prepared to address what we need for public education in this city. And so that's what I will do to begin with. But I also will work with every community group to deal with whatever action is necessary, because we cannot go another day allowing our children to be exposed to what they've been exposed to for the last 19 years and have the results that we have and are constantly being lied to by the opponents. Talking about we have no failing schools and all these lies, and our children are failing. Can't read at the 6th grade level. Proficiency, but they want to talk about A, B's, and C's, letter grades. But 73% of the kids aren't proficient in grade level performance. That's the reality. So for me, who has been happy to serve and provide the leadership in the legislature to straighten out as best I could via policy this mess, it is clear now that the legislature is tainted by those charter groups through lobbyists. And so the only source for saving our children in this community is the community through social action. And so we're going to do that. I'm going to try to do that as an elected official, as a citizen of this state, and a public servant who have served, and not only in education for the last 53 years, but other areas as well. But this is a serious piece for our community. We cannot go another day and have anybody else to play games with our children. We have outsourced the education of our children to a third party. Let me just say this to you, and then I'll be quiet, because I can share so many things that are still going on that are not in the best interest of our children. I learned 3 weeks ago that the school board gives a contract, right, to the charter operators. I learned 3 weeks ago that now the charter operators are subcontracting. They're giving contracts to other folks to do what the school board gave them to do, specifically in the area of dual enrollment. I don't want to talk about it, but just to give you an idea of what's not happening and how non-accountable this piece continues to be. And so, Brother Sutton and Dr. White, but Dr. White in particular, as you well know, our children are at a crossroad, and this community is at a crossroad. If we allow another person to be put in the leadership of this system that is not working for our community and our children, we have been object, irresponsible people. And we don't really love our children because we're not doing anything to save them. That's all I wanted to say this morning. I wanted to weigh in on that.
Thank you so much, Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie. We appreciate you. We have to go to break, but on the other side of the break, Will and I are going to jump into conversation in response to everything that you just said. But I thank you. I value your insight, and I appreciate you for calling in this morning. Thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate you and Brother Sutton as well. You all have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks for calling.
Listen, we have to go to break, but on the other side of the break, we're going to let Will weigh in. I also have something to say on the other side of the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
WBOK 1230 AM New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know with BIN News. Immigration raids in Los Angeles ordered by President Trump are criticized by California leaders for potential economic harm. Congressman Torres notes immigrants are vital to farm and construction work. President Trump at the House Republicans' retreat praises his team's work and fundraising efforts. House GOP leaders plan to combine his legislative agenda into one bill, potentially addressing energy and border issues. Speaker Mike Johnson may tie California wildfire aid to voter ID laws. Democrats, including Governor Newsom, oppose the idea, noting Louisiana's federal aid for hurricanes. Johnson hasn't spoken to Trump directly about it yet. And Florida is the top state to retire in 2025 per Wallet Hub due to low taxes and senior funding. Other top states include Minnesota, Colorado, and Wyoming, while Kentucky ranks the worst. I'm Bree Wood on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
New Schools for New Orleans wants to send a special shout out to our partner, the All-State Sugar Bowl. During the holiday break, over 30 teachers had the opportunity to ride in the New Year's Eve parade, and boy, did they have a blast. In addition, we had over 60 teachers attend the All-State Sugar Bowl game. Out of the 60, 11 teachers received a $1,000 gift card to purchase needed supplies to enhance the learning experiences for their students. Thank you, All-State Sugar Bowl, for your commitment to NOLA's teachers.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Show. Happy Tuesday. If you're just joining us, we were in conversation with Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie prior to the break, talking about what needs to happen to ensure not only the sustainability, the stability, but the viability of our school system here in the city of New Orleans. As Will Sutton said, it's the uniqueness of it. There's no other school district like it in the state, and I would even add in the country. And so we have to do unique things to ensure that our children have the best of what we have to offer. And so I wanted you to weigh in on the conversation we were having with Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie. Where's your mind going with that?
Well, I have a great deal of respect for Dr. Bowie for all the reasons and more that you know, and I think a lot of our listening audience knows. I mean, this is not a man who just willy-nilly says things without doing his homework and without thinking things through. He can be an advocate for whether it's our schools or something else, and know that politically something might not meet the goal that he has in mind, but that will be further ahead because of his advocacy. But with what he said this morning in terms of the district and the leadership, I think is very telling about where we are with this school district and this search. And I think, of course, it says a whole lot about his respect for you as a person, as professional, as somebody who cares deeply about this community, our kids. And he said what he's going to do. So, Dr. Wyatt, what are you going to do? Dr. Wyatt, what are you going to do?
That's not very few people have ever put me on a spot like that, but I want to be fully transparent here. When I was saying there's a person that I was expecting to call, I thought Reverend Calhoun was going to call about the school down in the 9th Ward, right? But I am so humbly honored that it was Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie took some time to call, because what I will tell you, Will, is if ever I am afforded the opportunity to do the job that I feel like I was born to do, that I am more than prepared to do, I will answer whatever call that I need to answer in service to my children. That's my answer. But the underlying sentiment there is I can't answer a call that was never made to me, right? And folk can want that for me, folk can want that for our children, but there are people in positions to decide that. The school superintendent is not an elected position, it's an appointed position. And so whatever the public wants might not always equate to what those people in those positions to make the decision want for that seat. And so again, I am a student of education. I am always open to learning and growing and expanding my knowledge as it relates to schools. But this is a job that I feel like is in my DNA. It's in the air I breathe, right? That's who I am. I'm an educator. And I love this city. I love these children. I will fiercely defend it and them until I can't anymore. And I don't know what role that looks like for me, but with or without a title, I'm going to continue to educate, love on, and defend children until I leave this planet. So,
were you considering submitting an application?
I will consider submitting an application as I did the last time and the time before that. And you know what I mean? So I just think that we have to be honest here. There are forces at work, seen and unseen, that no matter what we do or how we do it, it seems like their reach is a little bit further than ours. Their influence is just a little bit more influential than ours. And that's the truth of the matter here. There is a shadow government here that ensures that what is best for our children rarely ever makes it to our children. And I'm never going to cower under any amount of pressure or any amount of resistance. I'm going to continue to be who I am for my city and its children. But if I'm ever afforded the opportunity to do the job that I believe I was born to do, I have no problem stepping up to the plate and doing so in service of my children. I have no problem doing that.
So let's be clear. Is that job that you believe you were born to do, superintendent of New Orleans Schools?
The job that I feel like I was born to do is to lead children. So, you know, whether that's in a school or whether that's the school system, I just want to be afforded an opportunity to do the work that I believe that I was born to do. I do not think that it is in the best interest of this city or its children to have me on the sidelines when education is on the precipice of demise. I do not think it is appropriate. I almost believe it's unethical, in my opinion. I wouldn't ever have a resource, and because I don't like it or because somebody told me not to like it, I'm going to shelve it. There are teachers who you may not necessarily get along with, but as a principal, if they are best for your children, then whether you get along with them or not is of no consequence. You put the best people in front of your kids to do the best job that can be done for them. And so I think it's time to put egos to the side. I think it's time to, say it with your chest what your problem is with me, because I would like to know what their problem is with me. I still don't know. The only thing that I know is you don't like the way I say things. Well, I don't like the way my children are being done. I don't like the fact that they can't read on grade level. I don't like the fact that an A is not really an A. I don't like the fact that kids are graduating and can't survive in entry-level courses in college, right? I don't like those things either. But I'm not trying to fight with anybody. I just want an opportunity to do what it is that I've worked extremely hard my entire life to do. And if you want to stand in my way, I at least deserve a reason why you're doing this. I at least deserve to know who is doing this. I don't know the who, I don't know the what, and I don't know the why. I don't know. But I do know that there is a concerted effort to keep me out of schools. And the only evidence you need of that is the 6 years that I've been unemployed. That's inexcusable. So if you try to say that I have not been blacklisted, then explain the 6 years that I have not been afforded an opportunity to work. And if anybody want to say it, then I have the job applications that I've submitted, right? And the rejection letters that I've received. So you can't just say, oh, she didn't apply, because then I'm going to show you the receipt that I did, right? And I can show you a number of schools that I've applied to who are no longer operable at this moment. They're closed, right?
Yeah.
So there's a concerted effort there, right? And any researcher will say, because see, they don't like research, but I do. If you're going to refute what I'm saying, then show me the empirical data where you can refute what I'm saying, because I can show you the data that says, for the last 6 years, I've applied at X amount of jobs. And I've watched schools go without school leaders for entire school years. And I've been on the sideline. Right? So something in the water ain't clean. And I think it's time for us to know the who, the what, and the why. And you don't get to hide anymore, because our children are suffering, right? Kids can't read, and we're allowing folks to pander our success all across this country, saying New Orleans is doing so great. New Orleans is not doing great. New Orleans is great in some areas or specific schools, but by and large, we are not doing what a school system and a school district is supposed to do for the majority of the children in its care. That's not an opinion, right?
Well, the successful candidate will not walk into the job and say, I'm doing away with all charters.
Right.
That won't be happening.
Nobody has ever wanted that. I've specifically said, I would never do to you what you did to me, because that's how we got here.
Right.
Because you came in and said, none of this is working. It has to all go. You didn't come in and say, well, these are the things that are working. We'll keep these things in these schools. These are the schools that we need to have under our care, because they need some resuscitation. You didn't do that. You washed the entire system out and tried to build what you thought it should look like. And here we are. Reverend Calhoun is on the phone. Somebody must have called Rev and said, Dr. Wyatt said she wants you to call. So here he is.
All right.
Good morning, Rev. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
I've been listening all morning long. All right. And again, as you say, something in the milk, they got a fly in the milk. There is something wrong.
Yeah.
But this just didn't start like yesterday, 2 years ago. This was a plan that has gone across the nation to defund, get rid of public education. That's what this is about. Donald Trump has come in, and all of these folks that believe that he was the savior, right? Well, what he's giving up is your civil rights, your rights to an education, because he will increase the divide between the have and the have-nots. And I'll just say it like it is. Nobody's safe. The only one Donald Trump and those people care about is themselves. But getting back to the issue at hand, I think that we should look local. I think we need somebody who understands this system. I think somebody who's been in a fight. And the thing that they want to do is keep you down. They was trying to push you, make you leave. They wouldn't give you employment. As you said, you had the credentials to work anywhere, in any condition. But before they give you an opportunity to work to show that you can turn stuff around, they tried to starve you out. That's a tactic. It's a strategy. So what you've done, though, your resilience have shown that you're here to stay. All right? And you come from that humbuggish school over there. So you don't.
Now, see, I was with you till you try to, don't start no won't be no, Rev. Don't start no won't be no.
I'm just telling you what I know. All right? Because you know the Culver Rams is who turned purple nights blue. I ain't going to talk about all that.
Here we go.
Now, how you going to get on these people airwaves and talk about their school like that? How you going to do that?
I heard you, Rev.
Reverend Calhoun, we appreciate you as always. Thank you for calling in. We have another caller, line 1. Jerry, welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Gary Ballier.
Oh, it's Gary. Hey, Gary.
How's it going there?
How you doing?
This is what I want to say. You want to hear me out here being an evangelist or nothing like that, right? And I'm not an overly religious man, but I believe God has put you in this position, and I believe God has put it on my heart to trust you to do the right thing with our kids. And I think a lot of people feel like that. We trust Dr. Wyatt. We trust her with our children, and that's not an easy thing to just give away. If these politicians are elected on all levels, from I'm gonna say from Troy Carter all the way down to the city council, or appointed people that run things supposedly in the city, if they all don't get together and rally behind you, the people should just do what they need to do and not do what they haven't done since the 50s, 60s, 70s, and do things to force their hand. We get people appointed to the school board that fail us over and over again. They take the big salaries and they run. And most of these are people we don't even know. Oh, this one's from Alabama, or this one used to live in New Orleans, and they come back and they're going to run the schools, come from Chicago or wherever they come from, or they have the experience. We don't know, and we don't trust them. And if they do it again, whoever they say that then besides you won't be trusted. We know you're going to do the right thing by our kids. The high-powered preachers with the big churches, they all need to come together, do some type of, like they stand behind the mayor on issues we don't agree with. This is an issue that I think the people collectively, in any part of the city, let them see your resume and let the people decide. We need to start making phone calls to these elected officials, talk about Dr. Wyatt at church, talk about Dr. Wyatt in the city council chambers. The buzz need to be, we have somebody local and qualified and probably overqualified for what we need. We need our kids to get the basics right, and I know you're going to exceed that, Dr. Wyatt. Please, 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 I'm asking this listening audience. If you know somebody who knows somebody, let's start getting the word out that the grapevine catch fire. Let's have Dr. Wyatt as our school superintendent. And I pray that people in power do the right thing and trust the people who trust you to put you in that position.
Thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate you. Thank you for calling in this morning. We have another caller, line 2. Philip, good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Doc. faithful listener, supporter of your work and everything you've done in the community with the kids. But my question is this, and Dr. Reverend Calhoun kind of touched on it, but as a member of the community, what are some things we can do, whether it be letters to the school board, our school board representative, or just getting the word out? What are some things as a community member I can do or we can do as a community to support you in this endeavor?
Well, as Will and I were talking earlier, there's there are surveys that have been released, and the school district is asking you what you want in your next school superintendent. I don't know, because I haven't seen this survey. I saw the last one. I don't know if there's a spot where you could put a name, but I do know there's like characteristics and things like that you want in your school leader. I know the last time they did listening sessions all throughout the city where you can go in and talk about who you want and what you want in your next school leader. So I think writing to your actual district leader for the school board, participating in those surveys, making your stance very public, going to school board meetings, voicing those concerns. I think those are action steps that you can take. But again, as Will and I were talking, we've done those things before. We're trying to figure out now, what do we do to make certain that they're not just collecting this information, but they're also putting this information to use as they search for the next superintendent. So those are the things that you can do now to voice your concerns or pose your questions or give your commentary.
Absolutely. Well, you got that, Doc.
Thank you so much, Philip. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Listen, we have to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to jump back into this conversation. Hakeem, please don't hang up, because we want to hear what you have to add to the conversation. This is WBOK 1230 AM. I'm Dr. Wyatt, and that's my co-pilot, Will Sutton. We'll be right back on the other side.
Good morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. It's going to be a close deadline to get all the construction projects finished ahead of the Super Bowl, but officials in charge of preparing the city says the major work will be ready on time, with crews working extended hours to make up for lost time due to last week's snowstorm. Officials expect 90% of all work to meet the deadline. Meantime, officials are extending street closures around the Superdome ahead of the big game. Those closures are expected to last through the first week of February and impact major streets like Poydras and Girard. After nearly 2 decades, the demolition of the Six Flags will finally begin. The old amusement park was destroyed during Hurricane Katrina and has been abandoned ever since. The developer group, Bayou Phoenix, plans to transform the 227-acre site into a city community hub, which will include a sports complex, a water park, hotels, a family entertainment center, and a movie and production studio. Today, a news conference will be held at 11 a.m. to give an update on the project. And family, friends, and second-line community members gathered Monday night to remember Pablo Johnson, who died Sunday doing what he loved most. A vigil was held in Tremé at Tubafat Square, paying respects to the renowned second-line photographer who suddenly collapsed while taking pictures during the Ladies and Men of Unity second line. Johnson's family tells us he went into cardiac arrest Sunday afternoon, which led to his death. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great day.
Are you passionate about community safety and police accountability? Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Get the facts and stay informed. We're breaking down complex issues, highlighting community voices, and holding people behind the badge accountable. Join us for an informative hour every Friday at noon on WBOK. Your city, your police, your show. The Monitor's Mic.
I'm Howard Robertson, founder and creator of the Play Ode app. Back in the day, we used to ask, how you living? And that's still a relevant question today. Listening to good stuff helps you live well, like what you hear on the Play Ode app. ODE stands for Our Digital Entertainment, so you enjoy the best radio stations playing the best classic R&B, hip-hop, gospel, smooth jazz, news, sports, and podcasts. And new sounds are coming at you in 2025, so don't wait or hestate. Download PLAYODE need today.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning. Wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Tuesday, y'all. We're going to jump straight back to the phone lines. Hakeem, welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Hey, good morning, Dr. White.
Good morning.
It's Brother Hakeem. I just have a quick question.
Sure.
And a statement. One is, who has the oversight to select the next superintendent of the schools in New Orleans? Also, is it possible at some point that the WBOK staff can invite the whole entire school board to talk to them so they could talk to the audience? Because something has to be wrong. You know, when I was at the University of Chicago, very quickly, I met a professor named Dr. Williams. And my capstone was about the charter system in New Orleans. And so the brother told me one day, he said, he raised the window. He said, you hear anybody outside? I said, no, what you mean? We talking about the schools. He said, when you go back in your city, raise up any windows in the building. If you don't hear nobody out there protesting. He said, brother, I can't what happened to your school system started from Chicago. He said, your school system was totally hijacked like this one here was. He said, when you go back and look at pre-Katrina, talk to those teachers that lost their jobs. And I met one, Dr. Clyde Robinson was my professor at Southern University of New Orleans. Dr. Clyde gave me in depth of what happened pre-Katrina. Then when I went back to school, I studied more on post-Katrina. And I said, damn, man, there's got to be an oligarchy of a few individuals that's controlling the education. So I met a lady some years ago named Leslie Jacobs. I was introduced to her. Brother said, that's the one, got the power and got the charter strings. I didn't understand what this brother was saying, but he was an educator. I'm like, man. So as I began to put my eyes on you, sister, from afar, I always ask the question to myself, what has this sister has done? She not only has the certification, she's qualified. Her child comes from the school system. She's from the very school system. Who have she sinned against that control people that sits on the school board that when they mention your name, because sister, you're not genuflecting. That's what it is, Dr. White. You're not scratching when you're not itching, and you're not smiling when you're not funny, and you have spine in your back, and you're not afraid to say what's important to, as you say, the children. Because you always, when I met you always say this is about the children. And so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Hakeem. I appreciate you. So to answer your question, he asked who is in charge of making that decision. NOLA Public Schools, that school board is the board that is going to be in charge of hiring the superintendent. He also asked me, what did I do for me to be in this position? I committed the deadly sin of calling out fiscal malfeasance at a school where I was working as a principal. And ever since that incident, I've worn a scarlet letter. And I don't understand why, to be honest, why what I did equated to this death sentence that I've gotten in terms of my career. And so I think a lot of folk are misled because they don't know the facts of what happened. I lived them. I know what happened. I know who the players are. I can call them by name. And I believe that is why there's a concerted effort to block me, because if the actual full story is told, then you're going to realize that this is bigger than just what happened to me at Horny, because there's so many people involved. And so many people who hold or have held high positions in this city in terms of elected officials, right? And I will never forget the day in court when the guy that I spoke up against was being sentenced, and the judge, Zaney, I believe that's his name, he said there were so many letters written on his behalf. And he said, I believe these people wrote these letters because they didn't ever think anybody would hear them but me. Mm-hmm. He said, I believe they wrote them to me thinking I would be the only one to read them and to hear them. But I think it's important to read them out loud in open court. And that's the day that I heard the names of all of these folk who supported him, despite knowing what he did, not only to me, but to the children of Edgar P. Harney and to the parishioners at his church. And they called the judge called the names of these people and read the letters of those people. And I could not believe what I was hearing. And I've been in purgatory ever since. And so I didn't do anything wrong. I will stand on what I did any given Sunday. I would do it again and again and again. Knowing the outcome, I would do it again. Because for me, if we all look the other way, then what does that say about who and what we're supposed to stand for in defense of children? Our kids can't read because most of them don't have the resources to read, and most of them don't have the resources because folks are stealing from them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you know that's happening and you don't say anything, then guess what? You might not put your hand in the cookie jar, but you're complicit, right? The law says that. The law says if you and I go somewhere together and I commit a murder, guess what? You're going to be charged too. Right. Whether you pulled the trigger or not, you were with me. You were complicit. So how is it that we can know these things are going on, but the folk who bring the truth to the light are the pariahs, and the people who are committing the crimes against our children continue to get promotion after promotion and job after job. And the folks who sacrifice the most are struggling to pay bills. And I'm talking about myself here. Right? So I've never hid my scars from anybody. I'm very transparent. And to your point that you made before, whoever comes in, they can't just wash out the charge system. I've never wanted that. I believe that there's a place for a hybrid sort of system, right? Because whatever is working, why would you touch that? Why would you disrupt that? But even the charter law says if it's working, you replicate what's working. It didn't say, you know, what y'all did to us. We had schools that were working. We had blue ribbon schools in the city of New Orleans. I attended one of them. My elementary school had an accommodation from the White House. It is closed today. William J. Fisher Elementary School, right? It is closed today. Edna Carr Magnet School was a blue ribbon school. So we McDonald 35 was an academic powerhouse, right? We're not talking about a system that you came in and you couldn't find excellence. You couldn't find, you know, academia going on. No, we had schools that were working. And you didn't take into account those schools. You just said, nope, let's start over. Wash the slate clean. And the way you did that was to fire our entire teaching base so that you could create this need or this shortage, quote unquote. So that you could create this idea that we needed you to survive. No, you just had to bring back our workforce, right? Keep the schools that were working. Replicate the schools that were working. You could have replicated 35. You could have replicated Edna Carr, right? You replicate William J. Fisher. You replicate those schools. If you were serious about restoring our schools post-Katrina.
Right.
But this wasn't about that. This was about disaster capitalism. This was about, we see contracts, right? We see dollar signs. We see money. We see resume builders. And for me, that is the most egregious thing. It's because you sold our people this fallacy about innovation. And you can choose the school that you don't have to be relegated to the failing neighborhood school. So whoever is our next school leader has to be honest about the state of public education in the city of New Orleans and create a plan that preserves the integrity of the charter schools that are working and rebuilds the schools that are struggling so that they can mirror the excellence of what you're trying to replicate.
So maybe there's a CMO that has successful and failing schools.
Absolutely.
And so, if I understand correctly, you're saying, well, let's look at that failure and fix it, change it, or ditch it.
Yes.
And look at your success and build on it.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I said. And I'll go a step further for that school down in the 9th Ward that has the name of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, right? You don't wash out the school because you're saying it's not working. There are components of it that aren't working. What you're supposed to do is resource that component, resuscitate that component, but you don't throw the baby out just because the bathwater ain't clean. Run some new water. Save the baby. Right? That's what you do. You don't close a whole school because parts of it needs resuscitation, because then what happens? All of those children who are benefiting from the good stuff that is happening in a school, it's gone. And now they have to find some resemblance of that elsewhere and hope it's there. Because any school you go to, that there's not a school in the city that is perfection. There are issues at every school, small, medium, large issues, right? There's issues in schools I ran, right? Even under my leadership. But my job as a principal was to try to resuscitate those things while continuing to pour into the things that are working, because you can't neglect the stuff that's working, because you don't want that to fall by the wayside. Right? So I'm not ever saying wash away the entire charter school system. That is not what I'm saying.
Right.
Because the charter school systems that are working are, guess what, Will Sutton? The public schools that were working.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm not saying that. You can call it a charter all you want. We know that those were public schools that were working pre-Katrina.
Right.
So let's keep them. Let's go in and see why they're working so well. Why is it that your kids are gaining so much on LEAP? Why are your kids thriving in extracurricular activities? Let's look at why that is happening, and then look at the school that needs to help and put them up against each other and say, this is what they're doing, this is what you're doing. So let's try to rehab this area, right? And grow. Copy it. Who says we can't copy it?
Right.
This is not a test. You're not cheating off anybody's paper. What you're saying is, if they're doing so well over there and I'm over here struggling, what is it that they're doing over there that we can replicate, that we can mirror to ensure that our children have the experience that those children over there are having? We have to go to break. Again. Again. But we gonna try to squeeze it all in after the break. Stay with us, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
A few spots of patchy fog expected this morning, especially over water. Lakes could see visibility drop to less than a mile. Mostly cloudy after that, with near-seasonal highs in the low to mid-60s. Staying cloudy tonight, lows in the upper 40s to mid-50s, warming to the upper 60s Wednesday, 70s by Thursday, rain on Friday morning. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Welcome to Chemical of the Month, a service of the community scientist and Rise St. James. This month, we're focusing on lead, a heavy metal that's dense, soft, and poses serious health risks. In Cancer Alley, lead exposure from industrial emissions or contaminated soil can significantly increase cancer risks and other health problems. Stay informed and protect your health. For more information, visit risestjames.org.
Do you know what United Way can do for you and your community? Find out by listening to United Way and You every Thursday at noon on WBOK 1230. United Way continues to fight for the most vulnerable members of the community. Find out how this Thursday and every Thursday at noon.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060. Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
We are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta White. My co-host this morning is none other than Will Sutton, and I'm going to let Will have the floor because you know you got some stuff to say.
Well, this turned out to be quite a visit this morning. But boy, what a show! What a show! So. And Senator Bowie really put it out there.
Yeah, he started that fire. You saw that like after he chimed in, the folk came stepped up to the plate.
So now we're gonna see what some other folks say and what you gonna do.
What I'm gonna do.
What you gonna do.
Yeah.
And how you gonna respond, officially, unofficially, otherwise, because my guess is that Joe Bowie's not the only one who feels that kind of way.
And listen, I am very thankful. I am grateful for Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie and anyone who supports me, because it's not easy, especially to publicly do it, right? Because I think that anytime that you align yourself publicly with someone who folks have condemned for whatever reason, it that takes courage in a way that most of us seem to not be equipped with. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is this: just as there is a number of people who support me, there will be opposition to me, and it will be it will be well orchestrated, right? It will be structured. It will be it will be what it will be. But I if they have not learned anything else about me, I hope they know that I could have whatever conversation that you want to have. I could dance to whatever music that you decide to play. I could sit at any table that you set. I ain't scared. Mm-hmm. And I said it like that because I want folk to understand that there is nothing that you can do to me that I'm going to run away from. There's nothing that you can say about me that I've not said about myself already. Mm-hmm. Like, I am not a person who cowers, from adversity. I've been there, done that, could show you the postcards. All I'm asking is that if there is a valid reason that I am unemployable, then express it. What is it? Mm-hmm. It can't be credentials, right? Because at first y'all said my credentials weren't real. But I don't think that I could walk around, with the emblem of Xavier University on my chest if I had not only attended, but graduated from there. That's you can Google that, right? Mm-hmm. My dissertation comes up with my name. Mm-hmm. They were saying it was fake, that I didn't have a doctorate. Because they don't see it on my teaching license. Well, you don't see most things on there now because I've been unemployed for 6 years. So it's hard to update something when you're not employed, right? But I have one. So it can't be credentials, right? It can't be experience. I have that. It can't be emotional connections or empathy for the children or love for the children. It can't be that. I would die for these kids. So you just don't like me. But what I can say is I have never endeared myself to be liked. I don't care, to be honest. Couldn't care less about being liked. But what I can say is the difference between them and me is I can work with folk I don't like in service to my children. I can do that. I've said in rooms, I was on the superintendent's transition team. Right? That was a job I wanted, didn't get. And she asked me to be on her transition team, and I did it. But I did it for one day. Because when I walked in the room and I saw the rest of the transition team, I transitioned out of the room.
Oh.
I can give you my expertise personally. I don't need to sit in that room. Don't invite me to trauma. I'm going to reject the invitation. Right? So I don't have to put myself in places and spaces that don't do well for my mental health. So I left, but I still gave her what she wanted from me. I tried to help her in any way that I could, because she didn't do me anything. No. She didn't deny me a job. No, you know what I mean?
She wasn't here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have any adversarial feelings about her. I actually think, for what it's worth, that she was given a raw deal. All right. And so for me, I think that, the very first thing that we have to do is to implore our school district to be honest about the state of public education in this city. And then whatever prescription that you're going to write, it has to be one that is actually about curing the ailments of this system. Band-Aids are no longer acceptable. We won't accept them. It's just not what we need to be doing. And then we need to make certain that what the public is asking for, you actually are honoring that in search of our next superintendent. Don't just listen to us, but hear us, and then implement the things that we're asking for in the criteria for your search. That would be my input.
Okay. So, Dr. Wyatt.
Yes.
Are our kids going to be best served with you as the advocate and activist that you are and have been through the superintendent search and the next segment of leadership, or with you as the leader?
The short answer to that is absolutely. The longer answer to that is show me my opponent. I'll go up against anybody. I'll sit at a table against anybody. I'll put my expertise against anybody. I'll put my love for children against anybody. I'll put my courage against anybody. Because the degree is what the degree is. We both going to have the same degree, so we could take that out of the equation, right? Move it out the way. Then what's next? Right? You anybody, show me who you think is more qualified to lead the children of New Orleans, and I will put myself in the same space with them. And we could let the folk decide who they want to lead their children. I don't run from anybody. I don't care who they go and get. If you're asking me, do I believe I'm a contender? I absolutely believe that. And I will bet on me any given Sunday. And that's with no hesitation. I don't care who you go and get. And that's the last superintendent included. I would have sat next to her and battled her to lead my children. And I don't have anything negative to say about her.
Right.
I think she was given a raw deal. But even with her, I could have been in the same space with her. Because the thing she was saying was no different than what I was saying. I was in the room. I was at the meetings. I heard her speaking. Right? So let's put our credential aside. We have the same credential. Let's set it to the side. You can't outlove me when it comes to my children. This is my city. I was that child. I know how to love that child, right? I know the statistics. I have the historical knowledge. She didn't. They had to teach it to her, but I knew it already, right? So show me my opponent. That's what I will tell you. And I will sit at the table with anybody and interview against anybody. So that's my answer.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you're going to keep doing what you do.
Always. And I love doing this
And-
job. So, I mean, at least I can, if nothing else, I have WBOK.
Yeah, yep. And but it's so important. It's so the work that you do is so important to the future of our kids, our community. It's so important because education is so fundamental.
Yeah.
It is so fundamental. And we know we need our kids to be educated. We need to be educated. As much education as you have, you know you need to continue to be educated.
Yes.
Especially as times change.
Yes.
There were no cell phones. AI, that kind of thing. But you look at these things and figure out, well, what about these things are good for the sake of the children and their education?
Yeah. Absolutely. And on that note, we out of time.
Oh.
We got to get you back. We got to get you back. This has been an incredible show. I want to shout out Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie for calling, Irvin Calhoun for calling, Gary Bellier for calling. I know I'm missing somebody. Somebody else called, but I want to thank all of you guys for calling and engaging in the conversation. I want to thank everybody that's in the chat. I didn't get to look, but I know there's some good conversation happening in the chat. I want to invite you to the front porch up next with Graylin and Kimber. But as for the Good Morning Show with Dr. Wyatt and Will Sutton, we going to see y'all on the other side. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.